Hello and welcome to Aspects of History's Film Club. This month's movie is Downfall, directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel, the depiction of the last days of Hitler as we reach the 80th anniversary. Now, it's in German, which is why you didn't hear the trailer, not much point in doing it. Roger Moorhouse, historian of Nazi Germany, joins, along with director Tim Hewitt. Plenty more great history on the way, so please do subscribe, follow, rate, review, and share with friends and family. But until then, it's me, Roger, and Tim discussing Downfall. Hello and welcome, Roger, Tim, to the latest film club. Great to have you on.
Hello.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Nice to be back.
Right. So this, listeners, before, just to let you know, we had actually said we would do a double bill of
Zero Dark 30.
Zero Dark 30 and The Report, but we then forgot that it's actually the anniversary of the end of the Second World War and also Hitler's death. So we are going to put those two films on ice. We'll do them probably next month, actually. And instead, we're going to do the masterpiece that is Downfall. That is the 2004 German film directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel and starring Bruno Ganz as Adolf Hitler. And we wanted to do this because, I mean, I think I'd put it in my top number one historical film. And when we had done that chat ever so long ago, but we've got Roger, brilliant Nazi historian, with us. And
I think you need to rephrase that slightly.
No, I know he always says that. It's the standard line.
Sorry. I didn't realize.
I'm used to it now.
I can't resist. And then Tim, you're I know an admirer of this as well.
Nazi filmmaker.
Yes. So I mean, this is watching it again. I've watched it so many times, actually.
Yeah, me too.
But I'll just do a few basics for the listeners, just so we know where we are. So it was, as I say, released in 2004. It had a budget of only 13 million euros, which is really not very much. And they've done a fantastic job, which I think, relatively speaking, is not a huge amount of resources. It made $92 million at the box office. I think did very well abroad. It is based on, I think, a number of different sources, but I guess first and foremost, we are watching this from the point of view of Fraulein Traudl-Junge.
Yes.
Played by...
that's one of Hitler's secretaries.
Yes.
Played by
Roger,
Lara.
why don't you talk about some of the
the two primary sources that it uses are Traudl-Junge's memoir, which was sort of co-written or ghostwritten with a journalist called Melissa Muller, and it came out in 2002. Hitler had numerous secretaries. She was a relative latecomer, so there was another secretary called Christa Schroeder, who actually is kind of airbrushed out of this, as far as I could tell. So they had, in this film, they had Traudl-Junge, who's this sort of white, almost doe-eyed, she's almost like she plays the role almost as sort of an innocent sort of ingenue in this scene of, chaos and destruction. And she does play it very well, I think. I don't know how, the memoir itself is very good. I read it many years ago. A lot of those memoirs, there was a lot of these memoirs from people in Hitler's household that sort of came out in the 50s and 60s, and some of them translated more recently. And they all spoke to this aspect, which a lot of people are kind of objected to in the film, which is that Hitler is sort of portrayed as a human being is the only way you can phrase it. But all of those memoirs said that, they described him as being, very kind of avuncular towards, particularly towards the women, towards his secretaries. He was a hand kisser. He used to call them, my child, my children, in a very sort of paternal way, and was very, generally very gentle with them. And you can see that in the opening scene of the film. So that's something that a lot of people were kind of found quite jarring, I suppose, because the conventional portrayal of Hitler is very one-dimensional, and it's usually the carpet-biting, genocidal madman. But what this film shows us is the human being as well as the carpet-biting genocidal madman, which for some was controversial. But I mean, I thought it was brilliantly done. So that's a combination both of the source material, i.e., having Traudl-Junge as essentially as the sort the core of that narrative, and the brilliance of Bruno Ganz actually pulling it off and humanizing him. So that's one source, is Traudl-Junge. The other source is Joachim Fest, who is a German journalist primarily, but also historian, and he wrote a book years ago. He's dead now. He wrote a book years ago called Inside Hitler's Bunker, I think it was called in the English edition. So it was a sort of last days of Hitler kind of thing, and it pulled together all of the evidence in a compelling narrative. A really good book. And it tells the last 10 days in the bunker. So combining those two resources, they have produced a film which is, I would say, absolutely compelling, and brilliant performances, but also is I think pretty much as close to events as you could be. We have this all the time talking about historical films and how there's this tension between producing something that is historically accurate versus actually good filmmaking and a decent, compelling narrative. This, I think, does it brilliantly, and is very, very close to the way things were as far as we can understand them.
So there's a bit of a responsibility for the director, Hirschbiegel, here, isn't there? Because he can't. It's like quite a delicate balance to present Hitler as a human being, as you say, but at the same time, he is this sort of monster who's responsible for millions and millions of deaths.
Yeah.
So, from your historical standpoint, he's pulled it off, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not it's not a whitewash. Absolutely not. I mean, you can see there's moments in this where, and Hitler used to have, his lunches and so on. There's a couple of scenes where he has lunch with his secretaries. And he would sort of routinely talk about, whatever was the subject of the day. One of his favorites was always dog breeding, because, he loved dogs and all of that. And of course, it sort of spoke to his racial biases and so on. So that was a favorite subject. So they were used to him kind of giving forth. But there was one of these scenes where, he's having a meal with the secretaries and others, and he starts talking about, the Jews and racial issues and all. And you can see the Traudl-Junge character is wide-eyed. I mean, she plays the wide-eyed ingenue all the way through the film, as I said, but she's sort of wide-eyed going, what the hell?
And this is 1945.
Yeah. And this is the point. Again, you go back to a lot of those household accounts, and Christa Schroeder, the other secretary that's sort of airbrushed out of this, she gets a lot of criticism with her memoir. She got a lot of criticism in her memoir because she didn't mention, the Holocaust and all of that. But then she said, well, I didn't know about it. And then everyone goes, well, hang on, you worked for Hitler for 13 years or whatever it was. How come you never typed a message about the Holocaust? But she didn't, right? Because it was always done verbally. That's Hitler gave an order at the beginning of the war, which was about anything sensitive has to be done verbally. We're not going to leave a sort of a paper trail. So that's why there's no written order for the Holocaust. But we know it. It came from Hitler. You can't sort of exonerate him that way. Absolutely not. So it sort of speaks to the fact. I always explain this away because it is quite difficult to make sense of. But I suppose if you imagine, the eye of the storm is not the best place to observe the storm, in a way, right? Because it's kind of a peculiarly sort of isolated place. And for someone like Traudl-Junge or Christa Schroeder, they'll be typing speeches and memoranda or whatever it is, where at best you're the words you're typing are, euphemisms, or it's code for something that is never made necessarily explicit. So I kind of get that. I think I think it is probably fair that they didn't know about it. But there's what's interesting on that, just on that point. So I don't want to dominate too much, but just on that point, the film is bookended by interviews, very brief extracts of an interview with Traudl-Junger herself, much later in life before she died. So this must be in the 1990s, I think. And she says in those snippets, I think it's the second one, which is right at the end, she says that she uses this phrase in German, wir hätten was wissen können, which is like we should have known, right? We should have known something. And she sort of berates herself for not, in a sense, not being eyes wide open and asking the right questions and so on, in spite of the fact that had she done that, she probably would have been tossed out on her ear. But she kind of berates her young self for not having been eyes wide open. And she says, we probably should have known. We should have asked the right questions. But she says we just didn't. Which is, I think that's as honest as it probably gets from there. She says, they were blinkered to some extent, blinkered by being with, this, someone who was seen like as, sort of a godlike figure. So she was, it's an interesting subject. But I think, crucially, to come back to the film, I think the film actually carries that off really well. Because there's various scenes where the secretaries are, in tears because of what's going on and the stuff that they're suddenly hearing, and just the realization of the apocalypse that is about to befall them as Berlin falls.
Well, just a few things on Traudl-Junger is that she did actually marry a member of the SS who was killed in the fighting in Normandy. So she wasn't in the Nazi party herself, but her husband was. And so just to push old Traudl-Junger a little bit more on this, Roger, I mean, 1945 lunch in the bunker wouldn't have been the first time she'd had a sort of relatively intimate meal with Hitler.
No, certainly not.
Presumably I think she only gets the job in 42.
Yeah.
So between 42 and 45, presumably he would have given his view on Jews.
Yeah, and it would have been couched to some extent. And I think the key thing is here that he wouldn't have said, "Oh, and by the way, we're exterminating them."
No.
He would have, of course, he would have said something about the Jews, but that was fairly commonplace, in Germany at the time. So that sort of low level in inverted commas anti-Semitism, saying bad things about the Jews, how the Jews maybe were poisoning the German race or whatever it was commonplace. She would have heard that, and she probably would have shared it. Certainly wouldn't have spoken up against it, but crucially, Hitler wouldn't have said, "Oh, by the way, there's this place called Auschwitz, and we're exterminating them."
Yeah,
he wouldn't have told them that.
Okay, Tim. From a filmmaking standpoint, Hirschbiegel's done a just quite brilliant job.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, it's a remarkable film. Dominated by Bruno Ganz's performance, I think, and you do sort of miss him slightly when he dispatches himself. I mean the performance, not the character. Let me make that perfectly clear. Simply because it is an interesting point. It's obvious, I think, that people were going to have a little bit of an issue with the fact that he's portrayed as a human being, but it kind of is a little bit aggravating, that viewpoint, because firstly, he was a human being. I'm afraid we can't deny that. And secondly, it makes it, I think, even more monstrous. It makes it all the more monstrous that he is a human being and not a one-dimensional monster, because then you start to see there is emotion, there is something behind this mask that makes him even worse. It makes the whole concept even worse.
And horrific. I agree with that entirely, Tim. I think that a lot of that sort of to use the modern phrase, othering of Hitler.
Yeah.
Is a sort of defense mechanism to say, well, he can't be like us. He can't have loved, he can't have been loved
absolutely.
and loved people and so on. He
and
can't
he
have had
believes
all those human traits. But
deeply
he
in
did.
what he's exactly.
Yeah.
And he obviously was coming from a very, I don't know, personal point of view, and it was desperately important. The stakes for him were obviously extraordinarily high.
But I agree with your point that makes him, that realization makes him more monstrous, not less.
Absolutely,
but it's absolutely not intended as a whitewash.
And of course, we can see what eventually attracted Bruno Ganz to play the part, because it's a tricky thing to do. I would think. Why on earth he wasn't nominated for an Oscar is a little bit baffling. I think it was probably back in the days when foreign films weren't really nominated for the top prizes like they are now. I mean, it was only recently that a foreign film won Best Picture, which was Parasite, which was the very first. So I think if that had been made now, it probably would have been nominated for almost everything.
Do we
know? It got nominated for Best Foreign Language Film.
It was only nominated for Best Foreign Language Film.
And didn't even win that.
Didn't win. Whereas
listeners
will know our contempt for the Oscars.
Yes. Very familiar by now. What I mean, it's an amazing, but it's such an amazing film because I think the fact of, for so many different reasons. I mean, the design is great. The feeling of claustrophobia is, even though it opens out onto the streets, you do really have that the sense of the bunker, the claustrophobia just sort of permeates through the whole film. And I think it must be a very difficult thing to do to make a whole film that is almost entirely confined as it is. I mean, you really get. I mean, it's the scenes where they're actually in the meeting room where he has his outbursts are so really simply done, but so effectively done. And I do believe that the only CGI bit was in the what's it called, the dilapidated
Reichstag.
Yeah, I think.
Well, the Reich Chancellery.
They couldn't. The Chancellery. That's it. They couldn't because they couldn't. They simply couldn't recreate it. Whereas everything else was built. I think was a set. In different parts of. I think they also shot a bit in St. Petersburg, which was
I saw that as well. Yeah.
But it's so atmospheric, and the thing is that it's never ever boring. There's never one. There's not one scene in it which is kind of where it drags. It's
or is
constantly relentless and thrilling.
And it's 2.5 hours. As well.
And it zips by.
It does. Yeah.
I keep forget. I've seen it quite a few times, but I keep forgetting. I remember when I watched it the most recent time. I clicked on the display setting where I go, how long is this? And it said 2.5, and I thought, oh crikey, really? I can't remember it being that long, and it was done, but before I realised.
I'm sure
there are also bits of. I don't know if I got this from the most recent watching, which I watched yesterday, and I think I don't feel like I'd noticed it before. So there's lots of humour in it. Maybe I only got that sort of 20th viewing, but there are humorous moments in this that I don't think I detected. Certainly not first time. But I was just laughing. I watched a bit more this morning. I was laughing in the tube section, right at the end when they're fleeing underground and they go through the tube station, and they're doling out these. You'll like this, Roger. Iron Crosses second class, like they're confetti. It's just, I found that quite funny. I mean, they're still doling out these medals, and the whole city.
But even though sometimes the guys who are getting drunk, you're kind of laughing, chuckling along with those guys.
The scene where they're all getting drunk, I think that was. I mean, that is funny. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that giving out of Iron Crosses to to the latest generation of Hitler Youth boys to knock out a Soviet tank. I don't think that was meant to be funny, Ollie.
But I found it funny because they are so obsessed with this bloody Iron Cross, and we know this because it seems half the German army is obsessed with getting one. But it just seemed laughable that you're handing them out.
It is, in retrospect, laughable. Yeah, but that scene of them getting drunk, which is it is hilarious. That's very funny, and actually, again, rings true. I mean, I shameless book plug, but I did do a book a few years ago called Berlin at War.
Oh, it's very good, that one.
Where and it draws on a lot of personal accounts of Berlin in this period, and there was that sense at the end where people would well, like what else is there? There's that wonderful line, I think it's during that scene, there's a wonderful line where one of them says, well, drinking is all we've got left, which I mean, I can sympathize. Sometimes I feel like drinking's all we've got left as well. But that there was that sentiment that people, you just kind of in a sort of a fit of almost joie de vivre, there were people, I don't know how they put it these days, hooking up left, right, and center, just to have a moment of joy and pleasure, because tomorrow you'll probably be dead, and that is absolutely in all.
I mean, that sort of comes across through so many of the different characters. It's kind of this hopelessness as just sort of from the very beginning, and that's why I actually think I love this sort of film. In fact, it's kind of like it's one of those films, you could argue maybe Nolan's Dunkirk is similar, where the whole film would normally be the third act of a inverted commas normal film. It's kind of like the climax but stretched out to an entire feature length.
And maintaining its intensity.
Yeah, well. and talking about historical accuracy, it's almost like, well, you could, if you made it up, it wouldn't be as good. It's all these events are actually as exciting as they possibly could be. I mean, you really couldn't make up some of this stuff. I think if you didn't know, when I first saw it in the cinema, I believe I didn't know about the Goebbels children. So what, 2004, which is sacrilege that I wasn't. My education wasn't informative enough.
Well, but I don't think we would have been taught that in GCSE history, which is when I did the Nazis. We didn't do 1945, and so you would have had to have read a book on probably,
or have a very imaginative history teacher who would bring it alive. But
all the gory details.
Yeah. So if you did not know that this was, let's say you're an alien and you watch this and you had no idea of the historical events or anything, when it gets to those sort of scenes, you think this cannot be true. This is crazy. This is made up. So it's kind of, it's got to be one of the most thrilling stories, kind of, or I was going to say anti-climaxes for the Nazis, but it's it's one of the most thrilling endings to a regime. And who, if we can ask, how many other leaders in history have met a self-imposed end like this? Can we think of any?
Gaddafi?
Right. Gaddafi was caught trying to escape.
But
so that's exactly what Hitler was avoiding, is in a sense, because they're all pleading with Hitler. One of the themes throughout it is, you must leave Hitler, you must Fuhrer, you must go down to Bavaria, you must, carry on the fight and all this. And he says, no, I'm not going.
Saddam is the same then. So
so
Saddam,
you think
Ceausescu.
Well, he was exactly. And then but he, and then of course you've got to think. I've always through my entire life I've thought to myself, how on earth did this guy essentially convince such an enormous amount of people of this ideology? But he did it really till the very, very end, even after he died. Because they followed in his footsteps. He was that powerful, obviously a leader in terms of how he touched these people. And Goebbels is when he comes into the secretaries, he wants to dictate his own little bit at
his testament.
At the end of the will, and he sort of breaks down and says, "This is the first time I've never." It's ridiculous, but I mean, it's amazing, but it's ridiculous.
I very much enjoy the scene just a few minutes before when he goes in to give her his will and testament. She goes, "Well, I've got Hitler's to do."
Yes,
yeah.
And he says,
exactly. See, that's one of the moments of humour. That is absolutely one of the moments of humour. Yeah, yeah. I'm just doing Hitler's, and he goes, "Oh, okay."
Get in line.
Okay, I'll find you later or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I really loved about it as well is but the fact that it was so contained within the points of view of everyone. They did a bit of a it harks back to the way Spielberg did the Panzer was it the Panzer attacks when they were approaching the village at the end of Saving Private Ryan, where you never see them. So you never see the Russians approaching. Everything is from the point of view of the Nazis in this bunker.
Yeah.
And I think it would have actually ruined it had you seen, like this impending approaching army. And all you do is you really see the effects and hear them, I guess.
So you only see them in that sort of coda. Where
you get Zhukov. You get a meeting with Zhukov where
you do. That's quite near the end, though,
because it wasn't Zhukov, but that's another point. It wasn't Zhukov. It was Chuikov, I think it was.
Excellent. We can discuss that later for one of our categories.
Yeah. That's helped.
But just a minute. Yes. I know we're going to go through some of the our awards later on, but just some of the supporting performances to mention are incredible, I would say.
Yeah.
Then there are many. The one that stuck out to me was Ava Brown.
She's fantastic. She's definitely up there with
Köhler. Was just, I mean, the madness in her eyes. And there's moments there where there's so many where she pleads for the life of Hermann Fegelein, who is actually her brother-in-law. He's married her sister, right? So he's the guy, the SS guy, who was Himmler's adjutant to Hitler's sort of entourage. So he's one of the entourage, and he was. I mean, in the film, he's the very handsome German actor Thomas Kretschmann, who
I'm a big fan of Thomas Kretschmann.
Yeah, there was a sort of phase of like late 90s, early 2000s when he was in everything German, wasn't there?
Yeah, and then sometimes, he was the German guy in King Kong, and he was brilliant.
Right.
Dragged Across Concrete. Very good in Dragged Across Concrete.
Yeah. Evil.
Right.
Evil character.
But that scene where she's pleading for his life with Hitler. Hitler says, he has to be executed. And she pleads, she's on the floor, sort of pleading to him. And then he switches. He's patiently explaining it like he's explaining it to a child. And then he switches and there's rage. And he says, it's my will, he's going to be executed. And she just sort of she snaps to it and says, "Of course, you are the Führer," and pulls herself together. And that I thought that switch was brilliant. Yeah. And the same thing with the scene with Speer when Speer comes in to say his goodbyes, and she greets, and her and Speer supposedly got on very well, and she greets Speer and she says, she rushes up and she embraces him and she says, "Oh, we knew you'd never abandon us. Like all these other people have abandoned us. We knew you wouldn't abandon us." And he says, "Oh, well, actually, I've just come to say goodbye." And she, without breaking her smile, she says, "Well, of course you have. Of course you have to leave." I just thought,
she's great.
She was fantastic.
That scene actually
stole a lot of scenes.
Yeah, but and just very quickly flipping to Hitler again. In that scene where she is pleading for his life, for her brother-in-law's life, it's that I think is sort of like an example of Hitler's humanism, where he's actually trying to console her first with the words. It's great use of subtext with the words, but what exactly does he say? He says, "But they're traitors.
Yeah.
This is the way it has to be." And he sort of like takes a hand and consoles her with these awfully evil words, and then flips, and it's sort of, there's the guy.
Yeah.
there's the real guy coming out. But he's that's his wife. He's well, not yet. It's his wife, but he is a loving partner.
Yeah.
No, look, this is the way it has to be, and and then if you plead too much, then the true me comes out.
Yeah.
And I thought that scene was amazing.
But her casting is excellent because she's got like all the constituents to be very attractive. Ava Brown. She's blonde, tall, quite nice bone structure. But if you see photographs of her, to me, she always looks at best sort of handsome, but basically ugly, really. I get because it's all in my head over what she's associated with.
Yeah.
And the actress who plays her is just the way they've done. I mean, if you see photographs of the actress, normally she's stunning, but not in this. She isn't. Do you know what I mean?
And are we is this a what would be described as an accurate kind of portrayal of her character? Was she kind of a bit wild?
Well, that's a good point.
Because you sort of, from this, you get the vague impression that for a lot of it, at least, for maybe a couple of hours of the film or an hour and a half, does she kind of really get what he does?
Yeah.
And how serious this situation is.
It's an interesting question, Tim, because Ava Brown is to a large extent a bit of a blank space, historically speaking. There's a line again from Speer, and as I said, Speer and her were, I wouldn't say friends, but they got on. And Speer, in his memoir, he said that future generation of historians will be profoundly disappointed by Ava Brown, because and why he says that is that there's not much going on, right? She didn't contribute. She wasn't, she was actually in a way, Hitler's kind of ideal of what a woman should be, which is handsome, good looking, well dressed, but essentially an empty vessel. You're a sort of support for your man,
and we don't talk business at the dinner table.
Don't talk business. No. So she has been described by people that knew her as sort of empty headed and so on. But then at the same time, there is this, if you look online, if you ever go down this particular rabbit hole, which I have, you can find on YouTube and stuff, and there are sort of there are photographs, for example, of her doing gymnastics by a Bavarian lake. So there was this side to her that was quite, we could almost say frivolous, I suppose. And that's already while she was in a relationship with Hitler, because she was in the relationship with Hitler all the way through.
But he would have approved of, Aryan women doing gymnastics and being healthy.
Yes, up to, I mean, in a sort of in an abstract sense.
Yeah.
And the fact that was his companion, he wouldn't have wanted those pictures to be put out for public consumption. And interestingly, she was kept very secret from the outside world, but that was as much sort of political as anything.
Yeah, why did he didn't want to marry her until obviously it's
no, and he kept her secret. So he had his relationship with her started in the early 30s, and the previous relationship in inverted commas was with this Geli Raubel, who was actually his niece, and we don't know what the nature of that relationship was. It could have literally been avuncular. It could have been something else. And his niece, Geli Raubel, committed suicide in 1931. So that was a big embarrassment. And obviously the political left in Germany ran with this whole, Hitler's a pervert, he's driven this poor woman to suicide. She was pregnant with his baby and all this stuff, none of which is kind of provable and is probably highly suspicious. But that damaged him. That really damaged him. So when he had started the relationship with Ava Brown, it was all kept very secret, because he didn't want to be damaged by implication. Should it go wrong?
Yeah,
he didn't want it to be damaged. So he kept.
And little did he know that the second woman he was going to go out with also committed suicide.
Yeah. I mean, there's
don't go out with Adolf.
No, there's a string of suicides.
Bad idea.
Hitler's love.
Well, are we talking there was a failed suicide? One of the Mitford sisters who.
Yeah. And there was another.
She tried but failed, didn't she?
Yeah. So, but the other aspect to it from Hitler's perspective is that he wanted to always be, he was a great hit with German women. There was a book released a couple of years ago of all the letters that were sent to the Reichschancellery by German women, saying, oh, mein Führer, I adore you more than all the others, and I want you to come and impregnate me. And that's literally like that, I mean, they adored him, which is, I can, I can just imagine Ollie pulling a face at that, but it's true.
Well,
so
one
obviously,
thing-
if it was to be known that he was married or in a relationship, that it would dampen that enthusiasm. So again, there was a tactical reason for keeping it quiet.
You see that with boy bands today; they always suppress the fact that they're in a
Absolutely the
relationship.
same, and it's absolutely the same thing with Hitler.
So, one thing though that I know you've spoken about before is he's had this horrific halitosis breath.
Yeah,
And actually, I was thinking of that watching it most recently. I kept on expecting people to sort of pull back in revulsion.
that's true. They didn't, did they? I know. I was thinking of it now. They didn't. I mean, it is quite well documented that he had really bad breath, and very bad teeth, and again that's partly how we know he's dead. For anyone out there listening, thinking the opposite, we know that he died because most of his jaw is still in an archive in Moscow, and we know it's his because the dentistry is so distinctive because his teeth were so bad.
Which accounts for the bad breath, I'm assuming.
Which accounts for the bad breath, right? So I mean, he died at the age of 56, and I think from memory, he only had 6 of his own teeth in his mouth at the age of 56, which doesn't say much for. And this is someone who had access to the very best dentistry. Let's be honest. But his teeth had literally rotted in his mouth. So it is documented that he had very bad breath. But that doesn't come across in this. You're right, Ollie. That's a historical error. We should have had somebody staggering back in revulsion.
Do you think that maybe they were so used to it that they didn't dare
perhaps
flinch upon pain of death by bad breath?
Yeah. Yes, but it's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. It's a good point.
Well, no, I mean, it's. I don't think it's not the plot.
Well, if you're going for gritty realism, then they should have written that in.
But there were, little things like, they're all having their sort of look like ham hock with their mashed potatoes and cabbage, and he's just having mashed potatoes and cabbage.
But that's documented that it was kind of too difficult to have him have a separate meal, so he just had the vegetables when everyone else had vegetables and meat.
Except for when he brilliantly, I don't know why he's so good in this scene, is when he's eating the ravioli. And is thoroughly enjoying it, but I don't know why it was what I call really good eating acting.
Right.
He's now, and if you were to think they'd have to take new camera setup here, do the camera setup there, so he's eating. A very famous example is Richard E. Grant in Withnail and I, when he's gorging on the roast. And he said, it was his first film, and he said, "Oh shit, I didn't realize. Of course, we have to do multiple takes, and I had literally stuffed myself on take 1, and I had to keep going." And so you think about, I always think when I see an actor really kind of shoveling the food down his throat, oh God, he's got to do this so many times. And I thought he was and at the end he says, "That was very good, Miss Roger. You'll know Mazziali, that's it."
Yeah.
He had an Italian cook, did he?
No, she had an exotic name. She wasn't Italian. No.
See, that's the sort of knowledge. You know that she wasn't.
And she disappeared. I mean,
and she vanished.
She vanished at the end, as so many did. She didn't.
Well, when you say, I mean, highly likely she got taken out by a Russian shell or something.
Or taken out by a Russian soldier or a group of Russian soldiers.
Okay.
I mean.
Hello, Ollie here. Please forgive my interruption, but I wanted to let you know that at Aspects of History, we produce a digital magazine featuring articles, interviews, short stories and book reviews of the best historical writing available. Authors featured including Ben Macintyre, Lucy Worsley, Andrew Roberts and plenty more. An annual subscription is available for only $9.99, that's pounds or dollars. Yep, you heard that right. That's 6 issues for under £10 or dollars. Head over to aspectsofhistory.com to subscribe, where you can also gift subscriptions. Now back to the show.
So brings us, since you mentioned the bad breath, brings us to the potential diagnosis of his unsteady left hand.
Yes, that is portrayed very well. So that, again, and there is footage of Hitler very late in life
in his speech,
and his left arm is shaking. So that is provable, and a lot of the commentators from the time talk about it. And again,
it's suspected Parkinson's.
It's suspected Parkinson's, yeah.
No.
And I think Ganz does that really well as well.
Particularly when he brings his hand up to take his glasses
that
off.
that moment where he has his rant and he sends them all out of the room except for Krebs, Burgdorf, and whoever it is. That when he reaches for his glasses, I mean Ganz is so good in this, and I have to say, you two have encyclopedic film knowledge that I lack. But was he as good in anything else?
He's very good in a film called The Party.
Right.
Yeah. Sally Potter film?
Where he's completely the opposite. He's a chilled out, was he psychology professor?
He's actually really funny.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a great film. It's a very short film, a black and white film with Christian Scott Thomas and Cillian Murphy and Bruno Ganz. And it's really lighthearted and just really fun. And he really is he's very funny. I think it's because I think he was probably quite funny in real life.
Right.
But it's a shame because he didn't really appear in mainstream cinema until this.
Yes.
But he'd done
point,
so much.
Right.
And it's just a shame. He's in a I mean, I really don't recommend the film. It's overly horrific. And I'm a major Lars von Trier fan. But one film he made with Matt Dillon called The House That Jack Built, Bruno Ganz is in it, and it's very good, even though you don't really see him. You just hear his voice. So after this, he sort of obviously started to get the American international roles, English speaking. But he just died. He just didn't appear enough, I think, in mainstream cinema.
Young. He died quite young, didn't he? Like
77?
Oh, 77, was it? Okay, right.
He's in The Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah. But I have to say, he absolutely nails Hitler because he was Swiss, right? So the accent is slightly different from Bavarian, but it's close enough that he can do it.
I wanted to ask about that because my German
rolls
isn't
his
strong
R's
enough.
beautifully. I mean, I think he really nailed Hitler,
and he doesn't make the rants sort of one note and annoying or grating or anything. They're and in fact, when you know it's going to happen, it's sort of you tense up. You become oh my God, here we go.
And
but they don't lose their power either.
No.
And so that's on the actor there. And, he's making a point throughout. It's not like he runs out. If I ranted, I'd run out of steam pretty quickly. I mean, he just sustains it, which is obviously he's got learned the lines and everything, but the delivery is extraordinary.
As part of my homework, I checked out Alec Guinness's portrayal which is on YouTube, and it was like 1973 or something. There was a film called Hitler: The Last 10 Days. So it's essentially the same job as Downfall does. But the clip that I saw was of that rant, right? The famous rant, the one that's been done with loads of memes and is all over YouTube, that one. And a lot of the words in it, so it's almost the same script that Alec Guinness does from 1973, because a lot of it is recorded, right? They know what he said, and he said, I've been betrayed, and all of you army folk, you spend 10 years at the academy just to hold a knife and a fork, which is a great line, just to be able to hold a knife and fork. And then I never went to the academy, but I conquered most of Europe on my own, right? Brilliant line. But you'd watch,
and I should have had all the generals liquidated like Stalin.
Yeah.
But if you look at how Alec Guinness did it, and obviously Alec Guinness was no mean actor, so Alec Guinness did it obviously in a completely different way, but Bruno Ganz every time. I mean, the way he did that rant scene is absolutely incredible, and utterly believable.
It's amazing because he goes from pretty much utter silence to, a bottle has exploded in moments, and it's really, really, really authentic, I think, and I have to be very careful with the words I choose, but this is because I think that the performance is so powerful, it's so good, and in fact the film is simply so good, it's so immersive that you can find yourself getting lost in self-pity.
Yes.
And for a momentary lapse, think, maybe he genuinely believes that he's been betrayed, and he's trying all he can with all his might to try and look. Well, let's do this. Can these guys come in here? Can the 12th Army come? Can they not? And they're all going, no, it's just not going to happen. And you think to yourself, oh, this poor guy. Oh shit! Did I just think that?
Yes, exactly, poor man.
But the other thing is, presumably they'd all been shouted at quite a bit, given the progress of the war.
Say that again.
So I would have thought that, first and second time it would have been horrible to be at the end of that kind of hairdryer treatment. But surely after a while, after third or fourth, fifth, 8th, 10th, 20th, 30th time he's ranting at you, it really wouldn't work anymore on me. But then I guess the stakes are a little bit higher.
They are I think high. That when he ends things with, then he'll get his just punishment. He will pay in blood. Will execute him. I think it would work.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a quick one, just before because I know we're going to get onto our awards fairly soon. But I just wanted to mention Albert Speer.
Yes.
Now, I think there was some criticism of the way Speer is presented, which is not a massively committed Nazi, to the point that he is counteracting all the orders that Hitler is.
The Nero order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered, Roger, what your view on the presentation of Speer is, because he does sort of come across as sort of fairly sympathetic.
Yeah, well, you have to bear in mind, I suppose, that the opinion on Speer has shifted and has been shifting over the last sort of 40 years, say. I mean, since Speer's death, for a long time he was viewed as a remarkably sort of honest, insightful commentator on that period. His memoir came out in, I think, 1970, and he did all of the interviews and all of the he was on The World at War, for example. was seen as sort of almost a fair commentator on that period. And then since his death, 1980, I think it was, it's been shifting, and nowadays he's viewed as much more of a dissembler, much more negatively, much more of a dissembler, someone who was very, very tactical, very clever about what he admitted and what he didn't admit. And we're much harder on Speer now in 2025 than we were even in 2004 when this film came out. So, in a sense, the portrayal of Speer as even vaguely sympathetic is of its time. I don't think you'd necessarily play it in the same way now. So that reflects the sort of source material that they're using, which is going back to Joachim Fest and all of that. So Speer's, he's a very complex character, and is very much worthy of investigation and interest. But he's viewed much more critically now than he was in 2004. So
and did he admit to? Is that true? He did admit to Hitler that he
did exactly. He admitted to Hitler that he had been countermanding Hitler's orders for the destruction of infrastructure.
And where does that source come from? If that
again, that I think that comes primarily from him. So I'd have to check whether, again, this is part of the.
You know what? I told Hitler he was wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
but there was no witnesses. But
well, listen, I think
that's what I said.
the problem with this is that I think it's demonstrably proven that he had some sort of nervous breakdown in 1944. And then when he came back, and his narrative, and that the conventional narrative of his biographers up until comparatively recently, was that when he came back from that, he was kind of a changed man and he was much more circumspect and all that sort of thing. And essentially the scales fell from his eyes. Now, I think the revisionist now biographers would say, well, is that really the case? Where are the sources for that? Where are the sources for, like we said about the Nero order? Did he actually do that? I think I'd have to check. I'm not a massive expert on Speer, but I'd have to check whether, there's an objective corroboration that he was countermanding those orders. Because I think that scene, certainly, I think that comes from Speer himself. So it's been reproduced by Joachim Fest because when that was written, when Joachim Fest's book was written, we still believed that Speer was essentially telling the truth, which is now a bit more questionable. So I hope that makes sense.
Okay. I just want to, I think we probably, was there something I interrupted you, Tim? You were going to say something.
No, I actually just wanted to give a shout out to the guys who, in fact, don't really say much, but are on the butt end of his rants. They're actually very, very good.
Yeah.
All the way they're listening, their eyes and they're looking pretty petrified. I don't think that's an easy thing to do, where there's no dialogue.
Their collars are feeling particularly tight.
They're stuck.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Good direction. I think that really is something to.
Yeah, even though it's been parodied millions of times.
Yeah,
and quite literally millions of times.
It's still hugely powerful to watch the original again. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really difficult. My favorite is when he has a massive go at the Last Jedi. It's one of the best of the parodies on YouTube.
Oh right, yeah.
Where the Last Jedi's just come out, and he has a massive go at the fact that some of the public like it, and he makes some extraordinarily good points. I encourage people to watch it.
Well, should we put a few links into our favorite rants that there was one that
I would, again, my paltry research for this, but there was I did discover once someone discussing what the original meme was, the first meme that used that scene. Do you know what it was? Do you know what had happened to the mythical Hitler?
Was it Matt Letizia hadn't been picked for the England team?
No. I mean, it's like that, and then there's one about Ronaldo, which is quite well known. And it was that the Hitler had been banned from Xbox Live, apparently. Which it was as ridiculous as that.
Yeah. I encourage the viewers, listeners rather, to actually watch the film first. Maybe
I agree,
because
let's not go for the memes. Let's go for the real thing. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So should we do our awards then? So I think we start with the best scene, and so we've just discussed the rants. I mean, that's obviously
it's got to be
the one that comes to mind first. I think there are plenty of others though.
Yes.
I mean, I really do like, and no particular order. But I'm a huge fan of the awkward dinner with the two pilots who have just flown in. And Hitler's discussing how we're going to rebuild the Air Force and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
I've actually got that one as one of my favorites.
Because it's so ridiculous. And then the female pilot is believing everything. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everything's going to be brilliant.
Yeah. Is this the one? Sorry, very quickly. Is this the one where then he talks about compassion, and then the Himmler report comes in that Himmler's
talking to the Allies,
buggered off and talking to them.
Yes, I think it might
that
be.
one. Yeah,
yeah,
I think so.
Because it starts off all about, and he says compassion is weak.
Yes,
and that's how I've got.
This is one of those moments where the secretaries are wide-eyed, kind of going, "Oh my God, what's he talking about?"
Yeah,
yeah.
And it's a little bit tense, but then someone comes in and tells him about Himmler, and then he goes off on one suddenly, and I just think the arc of the scene is really great.
Yes, I agree, and the scene with where Speer takes his leave of Hitler as well. I think that was really well done. There's tremendous tension in that, which they love. Really nice bit of acting there. And the other one that always sticks in my mind, which you might have missed, was a guy who was the doctor, the SS
Yes,
doctor.
I was going to mention this.
Right, okay. Whose name was Ernst Robert Gravitz in real life. And he's this quivering wreck who says, "Please, Führer, let me leave, let me leave." And he says, "But you can't go. You're not allowed to go." And then he goes back to his flat in Berlin with his wife and 2 young children, and they have this meal. And he's in his best uniform, and they say, "What?" And one of the children says, "Why are you in your Sunday uniform, Daddy?" "Oh, no reason." And then while they're having a lovely dinner, he detonates 2 hand grenades under the table, and they all collectively, commit suicide. It's a short scene, and it's one that I suppose could creep under the radar, but devastating.
Yeah, it really is. Well, just a point of order there. He commits suicide and murders his family.
Okay, fair point.
But just before he does leave, I think he says something like, and I could have made this up, but I think he says something along the lines of, "After what I've done, isn't it a good idea for me to get out of here?"
Yeah. Yeah, so the SS doctors were heavily implicated in, as you can imagine, in the planning for the Holocaust, in the execution of the Holocaust, all of that stuff. So yeah, I think he does make some reference to that, and absolutely, he's one of the guys.
And Hitler says, "Well, yeah, but this was all for science, so it's fine."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
Hitler's always.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's probably a reference to the sort of experiments that they were carrying out on concentration camp inmates and all of this stuff. I mean, had he survived Gravitz, he almost certainly would have been hanged, for crimes against humanity. So yeah, absolutely gruesome.
It's interesting that Hitler's always got, no matter what, a retort on which basically makes him the monster, I guess, that he was, is. No matter what, it's like, well, we're losing all our young people. Well, that's what young people are for?
Yeah.
There's always one answer that he's got, no matter what.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's a chilling line. So yeah, that scene, the death of Gravitz and his family, I thought was very powerful, and it always sticks in my mind.
I actually really like. There are quite a few actually. That even some of them are very short, but I love it when he gives the suicide pill. They sit in the sitting room and they're given the suicide pills, and he says, I think he gives one to the secretary. And when Professor Schenk comes face to face with the guys that kill the 2 old men, he says, "You can't do that." And he says, "Really?
Yeah.
Watch me." And he does.
Yeah.
And you go, "What are you going to do about it?" Those are quite brief scenes, but I think they're really effective.
Yeah.
And they come out of nowhere, and they really kind of shock you.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many.
Another one I love is, and this takes you from the fighting up in the administrative district, or whatever it's properly called, and it's a tracking shot of the General Wiedling, who's been called back for. I don't think his position actually moves, but everyone moves behind him, so it looks like he's retreated, but he hasn't, or something along those lines.
And he says, "I'm to be shot," and he's called to the Reich Chancellery, and he appears at the Reich Chancellery, and they say, "What's your business here?" He says, "I'm to be shot."
Yeah,
but it's the tracking shot that takes him. I don't think it's done in one shot, but it just takes him from up all the way down into the heart.
And he doesn't really sort of flint. He's not, he was not trembling in his body. He's an officer, I suppose, but he's, and then he goes, the Führer is impressed with your account. You.
Yeah, exactly.
I do like that. It's a shame that senior officers don't wear the trousers anymore. The ones that go out in the, They're great, those. The British Army used to wear them as well. I don't know why. Alan Brooke used to wear them.
Very, very spacious in the hip.
They're fantastic. Bring those back, I think. Another character who speaks to Hitler and says, and this is Brigadier General Monka, who's very well played by Andre Henneke.
Yeah.
And he says, he requests to Hitler and I think to Goebbels as well, you're sending me kids and they're just no use.
Yeah.
And that's rejected out of hand. That's a very good scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a harsh, but the children's scene is pretty serious stuff, and it's very well done. No dialogue, of course, because it wouldn't have been, but very, especially with the evident doubt that the elder.
That's awful. That's why I think this is my
yes.
This to me, this is the best scene. This is the killing of the children,
because apparently that was true.
Yeah, well, she resisted.
She resisted.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just
yeah.
It's awful
because she kind of knew what was coming.
It's awful. Yeah, she's that age where she's just about
and as well. I think the way the Magda Goebbels character, when she did that, and then she came out of the room, if you remember, and she leans against the wall and then sinks down against the wall.
Yeah,
and then sort of stomps off. She stomps past Goebbels and goes and plays Patience.
Yeah.
And again, there's no dialogue, but again, the power of that was astonishing.
They're both very good, actually. But Goebbels and his wife, I thought, were excellent, because she sort of comes out of nowhere with that plea where she begs Hitler to leave. It's interesting, isn't it, that her prime concern is, you should leave.
Yeah.
And she has whether that means, if you leave, does that mean we'd also go? I.e., save my children.
No,
or
I think the subtext of that is, I think she says at another time, maybe it's in the same rant, where she says she can't imagine a world without National Socialism and without Hitler, and she doesn't want her children to be in that world. So I mean, potentially it is sort of self-serving in that if Hitler leaves, she potentially can leave, which means that her children can leave. But at the same time, it's the realization that her entire world is collapsing as she sees it. And I suppose, pleading with Hitler that he leave the bunker is just the glimmer of possibility that it all might be saved.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily personal. I think it's much more, much more meta than that, much bigger than that. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's pick our best scene. I mean, I guess it's probably boiling down to two. To me, the murder of the children, it's just so shocking, particularly with the elder of the girls resisting, or then the famous rant scene.
The rant. Yeah.
I mean, the rant is kind of, from the parodies and everything, is kind of now iconic, really. And the children scene is so powerful, but so unbelievably gloomy.
Yeah.
It's a difficult.
It is. I think the acting, brilliant acting by the lady that played Magda, who I don't have the name scribbled down for. But I would probably go, it's slightly cliched though it is, I'd probably go
Corina Harfuch.
Corina Harfuch, that's it. I'd probably go for the rant scene. I think just because of the collective acting on show, and Bruno Gantz's shift from saying, well, everything will be fine. He'll round up. He'll sort that bit of the the front out, and then the rage, and then it goes at the end. He sort of descends into sort of self-pity. I think,
and the reactions of everyone around.
Yeah, and the reactions around. It's
really good,
astonishing piece of acting. And really, really well done. Yeah. And as I said before, if you look at how Alec Guinness did it, 30 years before, it's not a patch on what Bruno Ganz does. It just isn't. It's wooden. No. It's absolutely nowhere near. So I would be tempted to go for the rant.
I would probably go for the rant as well.
Okay. Sounds like the rant it is. Okay, great. Right, next, I'm going to need your help here, but I think you might have hinted what is the most inaccurate scene, which it seems harsh in a film known for its accuracy. But you mentioned Marshal Zhukov was not actually present for the initial surrender. Where I forget the name of the general. Is it Wiedling?
Weidling.
So not Weidling, Krebs.
Oh, it's Hans Krebs, was it? Hans Krebs was
Hans Krebs says, "Well, we're not going to unconditionally surrender," as if
Yeah.
they're holding some cards, which they're not. But
Yeah, it wasn't Zhukov. I think it was either I think it was Chuikov. I'd have to check that. I think it was Chuikov. They
so I
actually...
think actually we're being very harsh then. I think I might have misread the subtitle, and actually they got it right. It is Trikov.
Okay.
They have got that right. So I take it back. Right.
Right.
Are there any inaccurate scenes? Is it the Speer bit?
Is there the children outside that actually happened? The little boy who saved the German soldiers from a Russian attack. But it didn't.
All of those scenes, with the children fighting in the streets and the children and the old men, you've got the Volkssturm and so on. Again, use that reference you said about Monke, and he said, "You're giving me children and old men." That is how it was. They had these sort of scratch units of whoever they could round up. So absolutely, that's how it was. And they do have these squads of people going around, essentially executing people that hang out a bed sheet from their flat to try and forestall any sort of nastiness from the coming Soviets. And if you were caught doing that, you'd get hanged, right? So all of that stuff that you see in terms of the wider story outside the bunker is absolutely to form. It's absolutely what was going on. So there's nothing there, I think, that is unrealistic. I would say one thing here, and I'd have to check Junger's memoir, but the scene at the very end where she basically walks through most of the Red Army as a young woman in German uniform, I would say that is probably, given what we know about what happened to young women when they encountered Soviet soldiers at the end of the war, that to me is probably the most unrealistic scene, because I can't. Every time I watch that, I think, and they say, "Oh, don't look them in the eyes," right? Absolutely. I mean, you could try that. You could try. They used to try and make themselves look ill. So sort of dab lipstick or whatever to make yourself look like you've got measles. And having a child on your arm obviously helps, as it does with her. But that to me seems fundamentally unrealistic, because the chances of her being grabbed by at least one of them and pulled aside are extremely high. So maybe in her memoir she did get away scot-free, but I can't see it happening exactly like that. I see that as that to me is the weak scene of the whole piece.
Okay, good stuff. All right, let's go on to best performance. I think this is a bit of a foregone conclusion. It's Bruno Gantz's best performance. I mean, I think he's the only character who really can be categorized as such.
Yeah.
The rest are supporting.
Yeah, I would agree.
Maybe Eva Braun. So it's best supporting, and before we go into best supporting, I want to give a shout out to the radio operator.
Yeah, Rocco Smish. It was the last. So I think it was the last survivor of the bunker entourage. He only died in about 2012 or something.
Wow.
I actually had the opportunity. I knew a guy in Berlin who knew him, and he said to me, "Oh, we should arrange an interview. You can meet Rochus." And I never did it. And then, like a year later, he was dead.
What was his name again?
Rochus Misch.
Got it. Yeah.
And it's one of those things I kind of regret. I mean, that would have been really interesting to have.
He's the one that sort of just slightly disputes some of the film. Like, mainly, I think he thought it was mainly accurate, but he said that Hitler never yelled.
Okay, that's interesting.
Which is kind of a little hysterical to think.
Yeah.
But knowing his speeches as we do.
Yeah.
But the fact that he said the bunker was very quiet most of the time.
That's interesting. Which undermines the sort of veracity of the rant scene, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think wasn't that there were so many eyewitnesses that said that was true.
Yes, recollections may vary.
Mm.
Well,
he may have
just
not been in. He may have just been in another room.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the actor who played Mish very sadly died at, I think, only the age of 40.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's that. All right, that's a
Very
sad,
sad.
sad
Yeah, because
note.
he's good in it.
He was good.
Right.
So supporting, I mean, there's a list. I thought Fegelein, Thomas Kretschmann was very good. Schenk, the Doctor, Schenk, Christian Berkel, who's is a regular as playing various Nazis and the rest of it, and whether it's sort of stock German for Hollywood. Those two were very
Inglourious
good.
Bastards bar owner.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought Speer was very good. Heino Ferch. The two that stood out for me, and again, I'll be interesting to hear what Tim has to say as well. Eva Braun, obviously, who I mentioned before. Juliana Köhler. I thought she was fantastic. Really, really came to life in that film. Brought Eva Braun to life, crucially. And Goebbels. Goebbels, who was very Ulrich Mattes, his name is.
Great face. Brilliant.
He gave wonderful face. Like he really did.
Absolutely terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. And he carried it off. And there were some moments where he was like saying the most bloodthirsty things and just deadpan. You got a sense of the brutality of the man.
He's the sort of guy that I reckon that Spielberg would have cast in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
That he's the bad guy.
He's the bad guy. Yeah. So those two, to me, I mean, it's a really good cast. I think Alexandra Maria Lara as Junger, also really good. But she's a little just sort of a wide-eyed, sort of doe-eyed, wide-eyed ingenue, and there's not much beyond that. But she still does that well.
She's very good in a film called Rush. Ron Howard film.
I think I've seen that one. Yeah.
Niki Lauda.
Yes, I've seen that.
Film.
Yeah.
She plays his girlfriend.
Well,
so for me, I think it comes down to either Goebbels or Eva Braun, I would say, for the support. But over to you guys.
No, I think I'm with you. I just wanted to mention
agree.
a couple of others I thought were good. Andre Henneke played Monka. I thought, Monka seems like a splendid fellow.
Look up his biography. That is no splendid fellow.
War Crime City.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. I agree.
And then just another mention, just in passing, Gotts Otto. Not because I thought he was particularly brilliant. He was very good, but he also played the henchman in The World Is Not Enough Bond film.
Yeah. And he played Guncher, right? Guncher was the adjutant. Yeah, the very tall guy.
And a good that was the chap who ensured that Hitler and Eva Braun were burned.
That's Guncher. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think I'll probably go for either Eva Braun or Mrs. Goebbels. It's difficult to pick through. I'll probably pick Eva Braun.
Tim, casting vote.
Yeah, I think I would as well, because she from what you say about what I know / don't know about her, that she was a very, very prominent, memorable character.
Yeah.
The dance when they go outside to have a cigarette and they both lit up and she hasn't. She goes, "Oh, I could use a cigarette." I don't know. It's very simple, but she's really effective. And up until the very end, I think I would probably choose her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So
Good.
Juliana Köhler wins.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure
great stuff.
Delighted.
Yeah, she will be overjoyed. And right, so now we're on to I think the Tarantino category. Tarantino would have a field day with this.
Well, he's used one person in this film already.
He has. Has he not? Has he never used Thomas Kretschmann?
Yeah.
No, but Schenk is the La Louisiane tavern barman in Inglourious Basterds, as you mentioned. It doesn't really figure that prominently, but I think, so this is interesting because Tarantino's done a Hitler already. He was very good. He was a bit of a ranter.
Yeah.
Um, now, what would he have? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what he could do if without making it slightly historically inaccurate.
Yeah, I mean, my primary concern would be him sticking within the tram lines of the material, because he'd probably want to go beyond that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I wonder how he would,
Yeah.
because he would ignore the historical
Yeah.
He would
requirements.
probably, stick it in some sort of, again, we keep saying some sort of subgenre. Maybe not have it entirely from the point of view of the Nazis, but he would have it maybe from the point of view of someone else in that, or not necessarily, sorry, not from the point of view of a Nazi, but from a less prominent character in there.
Maybe
Who,
there would be like a Soviet sort of Stalin Hitler death match.
who speak. I was going to say that maybe there'd be a spy in this death match. So there'd be a spy in there, like a Soviet spy, or even, can I say, an American spy who speaks German fluently
Yeah.
and is in the bunker, trying to, do
Just
sort of
to
a
spice things up.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll
It's a
be
tricky
honest.
one.
You're not selling it to me, Tim. I'm not.
No, I think it wouldn't be probably
It's
not
not
his
his forte.
greatest.
No.
Yeah.
And actually, what is interesting is that we've mentioned a few German actors who weren't. I mean, well, what was Christoph Waltz doing at this stage? Because he's so good. Surely they could have
Well,
found
he
a role
was.
for him.
Yeah, but he wasn't. He hadn't come because Blasters was 2008. So it
Yeah.
was. So Christoph Waltz, I think, was just doing. Sorry, just doing, but he'd been making. He was a jobbing actor, but I think he was pretty much making TV in Austria.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, actually, Oliver Hirschbiegel, who's the director of this, made his name by making a TV series called Kommissar Rex, which I remember from when I used to live in Germany, which was a weekly police crime show, but the central character was the police dog, which is Rex, right? So it's all told from the dog's perspective.
Great.
Oh, nice.
So this is the sort of material that the director cut his teeth on, was Commissar Rex, which is kind of interesting. So there's hope for us all.
Well, he
Well,
makes
maybe that's what Tarantino would have done. He would have done it from the point of view of Hitler's
Blondie.
dog.
Hirschbiegel did make a very good film called The Experiment. I don't know if you've seen that. It's very good.
Yes, yeah.
No, I haven't.
That was before this, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and then later he made some films that I've not actually seen, but one that is very good is he made a film called 5 Minutes of Heaven, and I don't know if it was just a TV film or something, and it was set around the Troubles. So you have Jimmy Nesbitt and Liam Neeson playing. Liam Neeson plays a former loyalist paramilitary who's killed a relative of Jimmy Nesbitt's, and there's this kind of final reckoning the two have after the peace process. It's very good. But then he made a weird
And
film
he
about
did-
Lady Di. So
Yeah, he did Diana, didn't he?
Oh,
Which
yes,
I haven't
he did, yeah.
seen. Actually.
no, I haven't seen it either.
That's the first time I've heard you say that, Tim, that there's a film you haven't seen.
Yeah, it didn't rock
Quite
my
remarkable.
boat.
Well, another film that he made, Roger, that you'll be interested in, quite recently, you're probably aware of it actually, is 13 Minutes.
Oh yes, the Georg Elsa story. That was him as
Yes.
well. Yeah, which is very good as well. It's a very good film. I mean,
Okay,
it doesn't quite come alive, that film, actually, but it's a pretty good effort.
He needs to make. He sort of like has this obviously a fascination with Hitler.
Well, don't we all?
You can relate to that.
Okay, speak
I
for
can
yourself
relate
there,
to that.
Roger.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So yeah, the Tarantino thing kind of ran out of steam, understandably. Right. Legacy rating. Now this is
Right up there.
I mean,
probably helped launch YouTube.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so true. That's
So
true.
I would, 5 out of 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
completely,
mean,
without question.
No one's
In
going to
terms
be
of
remaking
it.
it.
To me, it's this category is all about if you're gonna if you're a history teacher and it's the end of term and you've got to put a history film on for your class, Stick this on, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing in there that is kind of demonstrably wrong.
The orgy of suicide we haven't mentioned, which is just everywhere in that film as well.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. Yeah.
Again, historically, absolutely bang on. There's a huge number of suicides at the end of the war, and especially in Berlin. You know, they saw the Soviets' arrival as the end of the world. Simple as that. So absolutely, 5 out of 5 with Legacy completely for me.
Great stuff. Well, this has been fantastic. It's been a long one, but worthy, of course. And Roger, thank you very much for your time. And same to you, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll do our Iraq War CIA double bill next time.
Wonderful. Look forward to it. Cheers, guys. See you soon.
Thanks for listening. As you heard, next month's film club is the Iraq War CIA double bill, Zero Dark 30, and then the report. And coming up on Saturday, Tessa Dunlop joins to discuss war memorials around Britain and Northern Ireland. But until then, thank you and good night.